So I'm back for my final video of the evening. Well, afternoon. It's still afternoon. It's only 4:26. So this time I'm doing a video on the Bristol Bus Boycott, and I'm getting my information from blackhistorymonth.org.uk. So I will should be posting a link to that in the description box. So if you want to read more information for yourself on other black events that happened here in the UK, then you can post this link. Alright, so it says the Bristol Bus Boycott of 1963 arose from the refusal of the Bristol Omnibus Company to employ black or Asian bus crews in the city of Bristol, England. And you think this was in 1963, it's only 2018 now. That's not that long ago. It's really not that long. In common with other British cities, there was widespread racial discrimination in housing and employment at the time against coloureds. Led by youth worker Paul Stephenson and the West Indian Development Council, the boycott of the company's buses by Bristolians lasted for 4 months until the company backed down and overturned the colour bar. The boycott drew national attention to racial discrimination in Britain, and the campaign was supported by national politicians, with interventions being made by church groups and the High Commissioner for Trinidad and Tobago. The Bristol Bus Boycott was considered by some to have been influential in the passing of the Race Relations Act 1965. If you've ever been to uni and studied anything like social work, social care, nursing, you will know about the Race Relations Act, because those kind of courses, like a law course as well, if you're studying to become a lawyer, they will always talk about past laws and the new laws. They will also talk about them. So yeah, I can also post some information about the Race Relations Act down below as well. Which made race discrimination unlawful in public places, and the Race Relations Act 1968, which extended the provisions to employment and housing. Bristol in the early 1960s had an estimated 3,000 residents of West Indian origin, some who had served in the British military during World War II, and some who had emigrated to Britain more recently. A large number lived in the area around City Road in St Paul's. You have to remember this was like 20 odd years after Windrush, and was still going through racism. This is why I keep saying racism hasn't gone anywhere. They came over here in the 1940s, a lot of them did, and a lot of them came later. So you think you come 20 years later, you think that stuff would have changed? No, they were still going through the same racism and discrimination. They suffer discrimination in housing and employment. What the hell's on for me today? And some encountered violence from teddy boy gangs of white British youths. This community set up their own churches and associations, including the West Indian Association, which began to act as a representative body. One of their foremost grievances was the colour bar operated by the Bristol Omnibus Company, which had been a nationalised company owned by the British government since 1950. This is why the government cannot be trusted, because think about it, that was owned by the government. And who do you think was the one telling them you cannot get that job? It's the freaking government. This is why you gotta watch out for the government in this country, because they tell lies and lies and lies. Oh yeah, this country is so equal. Bullshit. Equal me ass. Although there was a reported labour shortage on the buses, black prospective employees were refused work as bus crews. Although they were employed in lower paid positions in workshops and canteens. The Bristol Evening Post and Western Daily Press both ran series on the colour bar, which was blamed by company management on the Transport and General Workers Union, which represented bus workers. Local union officials denied that there was any colour bar, but in 1955 The passenger group of the TGWU had passed a resolution that coloured workers should not be employed as bus crews. Andrew Hake, curator of the British Industrial Mission, recalled that the TGWU in the city has said that if one black man steps on the platform as conductor, every wheel will stop. Do you see how disgusting the racism was? And you see, it's like people always talk about the bus boycott that happened in America in the 1950s, if I remember correctly. But people don't know about the don't know a lot about the Bristol Bus Boycott. That's why I'm doing this video, because I actually only found out about the Bristol Bus Boycott when BBC Two had a Black History Month series that ran from October 1st until a little bit in November as well. So, and that was like 2 years ago. That's when I first found out about the Bristol Bus Boycott. It was not talked about in full. It was just like mentioned briefly. And that's when I first found out about it. And I was like, yo. So it's just like, it's not just America that's had these things. We've all, here in the UK, we've had our own Black Panthers. We've had bus boycotts. We've had people spray painting houses with things like Keep Britain White, gollywog, niggers, all this kind of stuff. You would have the pubs that would say no Irish, no blacks, no dogs. So it's like, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, racism in these white dominant countries is a thing. The bus workers' concern, apart from racism, was that a new competitive source of labour could reduce their earnings. Pay was low and workers relied on overtime to get a good wage. One shop steward said people were fearful of an influx of people from elsewhere on the grounds it would be reducing their earnings potential. Boycott. 4 young West Indian men, Roy Hackett, Owen Henry, Audley Evans and Prince Brown, formed an action group, later to be called the West Indian Development Council. They were unhappy with the lack of progress in fighting discrimination by the West Indian Association. Owen Henry had met Paul Stephenson, whose father was from West Africa, and who had been to college. The group decided that the articulate Stephenson would be their spokesperson. Stephenson set up a test case to prove the colour bar existed by arranging an interview with the bus company for Guy Bailey, a young warehouseman and boys brigade officer. When Stephenson told the company that Bailey was West Indian, the interview was cancelled. Inspired by the refusal of Rosa Parks to give up her seat on a bus in Alabama, and the ensuing Montgomery bus boycott in the United States in 1955, I was right, the 1950s, the activists decided on a bus boycott in Bristol. Their action was announced at a press conference on the 29th of April 1955. The following day, they claimed that none of the city's West Indians were using the buses and that many white people supported them in an editorial. The British Evening Post pointed out that the TGWU opposed apartheid in South Africa and asked what trade union leaders were doing to counteract racism in their own ranks. When reporters questioned the bus company about the boycott, the general manager, Ian Patey, said the advent of coloured crews would mean a gradual falling off of white staff. Oh, pity. No more white staff. Oh dear. But black people are here in your country and they don't have no job and you're moaning about it. They even have recruiting officers in Jamaica and they subsidise the fares to Britain of their new coloured employees. As a result of this, the amount of white labour dwindles steadily on the London Underground. You won't get a white man in London to admit it. But which of them would join a service where they may find themselves working under a coloured foreman? I understand that in London, coloured men have become arrogant and rude after they've been employed for some months. Wow, so you're denying people based on stereotypes is what I'm getting here. You was denying them jobs based on stereotypes, saying they're becoming rude and arrogant. You don't think it's rude and arrogant to deny someone a job based on the fact you don't want white people to be out of work because black people will be taking those jobs? Do they not deserve jobs as well? They came over here to build up this fucking country. You see, this is the thing I cannot stand with white racists. They're so incredibly stupid. They come up with a number of excuses to act like, oh, why they can't have these jobs. You would deny people of colour, I really don't like that term, but I'm just using it in context. You would deny people of colour because that means you will be out of work. But who gives a rat's ass you're out of work? Who gives a... Nobody cares. Students from Bristol University held a protest march to the bus station and the local headquarters of the TGWU on the 1st of May, which attracted heckling from bus crews as they passed through the city centre. According to the local press, local MP Tony Benn contacted then Labour opposition leader Howard Wilson, who spoke out against the colour bar at an anti-apartheid movement rally in London. On the 2nd of May, local Labour Party alderman Henry Hennessy spoke of the apparent collusion between bus company management and the TGWU over the colour bar. On the 3rd of May, the ruling Labour group on the City Council threatened him with expulsion, despite his honourable service of over 40 years. Tony Benn, Fenner Brockway and former cricketer Leary Constantine also condemned the bus company. Constantine was then serving as High Commissioner for Trinidad and Tobago. Constantine wrote letters to the bus company and Stevenson and spoke out against the colour bar to reporters where he attended a cricket match between West Indies and Gloucestershire at the county ground, which took place from the 4th of May to the 7th of May. The West Indies team refused to publicly support the boycott, saying that sports and politics do not mix. What less? What less? During the game, local members of the Campaign Against Racial Discrimination, or CARD, distributed leaflets urging spectators to support the action. The local branch of the TGWU refused to meet with a delegation from the West Indian Development Council, and an increasingly bitter war of words was fought out in the local media. Ron Nethercott, Southwest Regional Secretary of the Union, persuaded a local black TGWU member, Bill Smith, to sign a statement which called for quiet negotiations to solve the dispute. It condemned Stephenson for causing potential harm to the city's black and Asian population. Nethercott launched an attack on Stevenson in the Daily Herald newspaper, calling him dishonest and irresponsible. This led to a libel case in the High Court. Miraz, you see these things? Not taking it to court. Was awarded Stephenson damages and costs in December 1963. The British Council of the Churches launched a mediation attempt. We seriously regret that what may prove an extended racial conflict arising from this issue has apparently been deliberately caused by a small group of West Indians professing to be representative. We also deplore the apparent fact that social and economic fears on the part of some white people should have placed the Bristol Bus Company in a position where it is most difficult to fulfil the Christian ideal of race relations. This in turn was criticised by Robert Davidson, an official at the Jamaican High Commission, who stated that it was nonsense to describe a group of West Indians as unrepresentative when no representative West Indian body existed. That's right, tell them, Robert, tell them. At a May Day rally held on the Sunday 6th of May in Eastville, local Trades Council members publicly criticised the TGWU. On the same day, Paul Stephenson had organised a demonstration march to St Mary Redcliffe Church, but there was a poor turnout. Some local West Indians said they should not ripple the water, and according to Roy Hackett, they may have feared victimisation. Understandable. You have to remember they were going through a lot in England at that time. The dispute led to what has been described as one of the largest mailbags that the Bristol Evening Post has ever received, with contributors writing in support of both sides of the issue. The Union, the City Labour establishments and the Bishop of Bristol, Oliver Stratford Tompkins ignored Stephenson and tried to work with Bill Smith of the TGWU to resolve the dispute. Leary Constantine continued with his support for the campaign, meeting with the Lord Mayor of Bristol and Frank Cousins, leader of the Transport and General Workers Union. In addition, he went to the Bristol Omnibus Company's parent, the Transport Holding Company, and persuaded them to join officials to talk with the union. The company chairman told Constantine that racial discrimination was not company policy. Negotiations between the bus company and the union continued for several months until a mass meeting of 500 bus workers agreed on the 27th of August to end the colour bar. On the 28th of August 1963, Ian Patey announced that there would be no more discrimination in employing bus crews. It was on the same day that Martin Luther King made his famous "I Have a Dream" speech at the March on Washington. Oi! On the 17th of September, Raghubar Singh, a Sikh, became Bristol's first non-white bus conductor. A few days later, 2 Jamaican and 2 Pakistani men joined him. In 1965, the United Kingdom Parliament passed the Race Relations Act, which made racial discrimination unlawful in public places. This was followed by the Race Relations Act in 1968, which extended the provisions to housing and employment. The enactment of this legislation has been cited by some as having been influenced by the Bristol Bus Boycott. Robert Thurkak, legal affairs correspondent for the Independent newspaper, said few doubt that without Mr. Stephenson's efforts, it would have been difficult for Howard Wilson's Labour government to bring in Britain's first anti-discrimination laws. In 2003, as part of Black History Month, BBC Radio 4 broadcast a programme about the boycott. Unite, the successor to the Transport and General Workers Union, issued an apology in February 2013. Lawrence Fairclough, the union's Southwest Secretary, said of the union's stance at the time, it was completely unacceptable. I can well accept the sense of injustice and pain that has been felt because of what happened in Bristol all those years ago. In 2009, Stephenson was awarded the OBE for his part in organising a bus boycott. Bailey and Hackett were also awarded OBEs. So there you go. That's another video finished. I shall be back tomorrow for some more videos. I hope you enjoyed the 3 that I posted today. Make sure to comment, make sure to like, and make sure to subscribe to my channel if you like the content. And also let me know down below what other videos you would like me to talk about. So I shall see you tomorrow. Bye. Don't forget, stay black.